Hey guys, it's Access Denied. I'm here with Salvation, and we got some good news. So, as many of you are aware, we're trying to take everything to a browser mode. Now, as many of you are also aware, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro is a client-based application. It goes over the internet, talks to another computer somewhere, and does stuff. It's not a website. So, the very first thing that we've had to do is find a way to kind of bust a hole in the internet so it could talk to your browser. Um, that was a nightmare. That's very far behind us now. So we did a lot of previous projects where we showed off that functionality, being able to bust a hole in the internet, and then we finally got everything in the browser. You guys have seen some pieces of that. We can actually communicate now. So originally, we were just getting like ones and zeros. We didn't know what the fuck what was, and it took a lot of research and a lot of help from the other simulators to get Salvation to a place where we could actually understand the messages that were coming out of the system. So once we understood how the messages are shaped, then we could understand what the messages were, and that gave us a very long list uh, that we had to work through and figure out the exact shape of these individual messages. The core of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro is actually G-frame, which is the visual element that you see. It processes things through a very long case statement. It's a couple thousand lines long. It starts approximately here, like, 105-ish. Um, oh, it goes a little. Here it is. Handle STOC packet LAN, which basically means handle communications from the server to the client after they've been unpackaged rather. And this starts at 191, and this function goes all the way down to 3,194. So it's approximately 3,000 lines long. And they're each individual case statements. So, boy, and there's still a couple of like extra functions in here that we need to like handle out, but for the most part, they're just case statements. And they have these constants on them, which are named. So I took the names of each one of these constants. There's approximately 108 in total, give or take a few, depending on how you want to look at things. Like, I could probably get rid of these hint messages and a few error messages, but the majority of them are here. So we spent the last couple months, really 3 years, however long Salvation's been alive, really. Um, as this is kind of on the back burner, we finished up the last, I'd say, about 20 of them in the past 3 months. These are, as you saw, some pretty complex functions. So all the first half of this code does is it finds one of these and it finds anywhere where it's reading off of the buffer, whatever variable that's named, it just saves it. It doesn't do anything else. That's all it does. Nothing else. Just saves the variable information. That variable information is then sent to another file, which is listed out here. And as you can see, this one isn't nearly as checked off. So with that information, we're able to we understand what Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro is trying to say to somebody. And now we are at the part where we have all the information and we're trying to create the visuals for it. So this leaves out of the domain of the other Yu-Gi-Oh! Pros and puts Salvation clearly in a place of its own. No one else has tried to do this. Well, they tried, but they failed. They're like, it's everybody says this code's too fucked up to even touch, to try to redo. But we're trying to make it through it. It's all in C++, really. So it's pretty horrible. Especially when our staff are Lua and JavaScript developers. So it's been very tough for us. So now we need to create the abstracts for, like, say, card creation. We already have an abstract for that, and displaying messages like this one right here. Yeah, I haven't even started on this one, and it has like a translation mapping system inside of it, and a bunch of other shit that I don't know how to do yet. So we're going to be we have the base, like that's a circle of hell that we don't have to worry about anymore. Um, Before there's some pretty crazy bitmap in here. For example, just like figuring out what to do here. So originally when we did this one, like we would just copy the bitmap. It was like, okay, we don't even understand this, so we're just gonna copy it. And we got all the way through here, and like the answer would always come out inverted. We go back and look and found out we had missed a tilde, and we had to look in like the languages that we're using ourselves and make sure that piece of bitmap was doable. Luckily, it was. But yeah, that one I have highlighted completely inverts the function. So there's a particular level of hell that we don't have to deal with anymore. Additionally, this one was particularly fun. Um, there's instead of there being an index for what the ban list is per se, the way that FH decided to do it was this complicated piece of hash coding, which loops through every single item in a ban list and then does this mathematical function on it. And that not only acts as a filter system, but an identifier system. So we have to recreate that, and that actually made my brain bleed a little bit. So we don't have to worry about that shit anymore. We got, I would say, the hard part done. We're more into the skill set of our actual um, staff. Now, additionally, all this data being uh, done means that we can start working on the AI again. If I can find it. Uh, so all you guys are familiar with WinBot, and WinBot is the source code for DevBot, effectively. WinBot's a little bit more updated, but at the same time more primitive. So Salvation has our own variant of it, and originally what we wanted to do is get Snarky, so it will get WinBot, so it was using Percival's like code base. So if you guys are familiar with this AI, the one that's within Percival's, it has very excellent documentation. Percy opens up a way of interacting with as a user via Lua, so be an AI. And there was a very good piece of work done but via a guy named Sarki. This is all in Lua, so the community I feel like will be able to work with it a lot better. But I couldn't get the original creator of WinBot to implement a way of doing that. And the people that are able to work on WinBot understand that as DevBot want the AI to be in C sharp. They're just not around that much to like write that code. Also, no offense against them, they're not as skilled as cool as to say general community as a collective. Um, they're not meta players, as you guys have probably seen from those decks. So those two guys, I don't think they play meta. I don't think they like duel at that level. But we have a lot of people that do. They're actually scripters. So I'm trying to fuse those talents together. So what I have to do here is actually re-implement the shell that is devbot or winbot, depending how you look at it. But that shell is also the same one as what we were doing here, just pulling information off of a string, having a certain response system, which is already completed. I need to do the markup on that for, and kind of a state management. So once we get the state management done in this, which is really just copying code and kind of giving it a new way of booting up, uh, like running server side and telling it where to connect and so forth, it won't take very long. We have to then just follow the documentation and have the outputs of these functions sent over properly. But the outputs of those functions are, well, the inputs of those functions are the outputs of these functions, which we have now. So we just have to link them and make a new shell. In one of my previous videos, I did show off the shell. I just have to pull that code out of refrigeration, clean it off. I think that'll take me like a week or so, and then I could start working on the connector. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to backburner that. I'm just letting you guys know that it's possible. That's the key thing, is to let you guys know that it's possible. I'm going to backburner it because I have to work on automated mode. Because I have declared that if we can't get to browser by August, then I'm going to shut Salvation down, because this has been 4 years out of my life that I would like to kind of put to something else if I'm not going to get any type of return out of this. So while I'm working on automated mode, somebody is also working on manual mode. Previously, while I was at DevPro, I came up with some GUI components that work with these functions. I didn't finish all of them, but just enough of them. So I cleaned those off, and as I've got those kind of working again, the ones that are going to be marked off in issues. Yeah, those are marked off here already. And believe it or not, they're actually enough to duel with in a manual mode. And then I built a selection map a couple of weeks ago. So it's up to the staff now to kind of put everything together. There's no new logic really that needs to be built, just everything kind of glued together. So manual mode probably just gonna like pop out of the ether a little bit. I'd say about 4 weeks after we finish everything that's going on with the deck editor, and I think we'd have a manual mode going forward. So it's just like a staffing issue right now. There's just not enough of us. But us finishing out all of those issues and checking those off really reduces the difficulty of the project, and the odds of it getting finished have like gone up substantially. So I wanted to get this video out there and just let everybody know how Salvation's doing. We're still around. We recently did a card update yesterday, so I will walk you guys over that because I'm sure you want some news. So an update 17 hours ago. New performer pal stuff. This is just like old news, but I'm just letting you guys know that these cards are in the system now. And then there was some changes to the Blue Eyes cards. So those images are changed. You're gonna have to like redo your decks now. That's gonna in the future. It's gonna be automated for you. So this has been access denied. Connection terminated.